For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thank you for tuning in on your favorite podcast app. This is the last of our Pride Biz Showcase episodes presented by buffboybrewing.com. If you need your daily or hourly fix of fresh-flavored coffee, check out Buff Boy Brewing Company for unique blends from around the world, international tastes with the finest roasts at buffboybrewing.com. And over the past few weeks, we've been talking with LGBTQRST entrepreneurs. And after those interviews, I have gone on the record just with some of my own personal stories and anecdotes and things that have happened in my own personal business life. And so we actually had, this is funny, we actually had another guest planned for today. But there were so many other questions that were sent in, and people were commenting and just trying to probe to get more insight from me as to how I achieved my success. And I mean, I know that sounds like so incredibly cocky, but how else do you say it, right? People have been, hitting me up to, and I'm not certainly by any means a millionaire. I don't even want to make it seem like, oh, I'm the most successful entrepreneur. But here's the deal. I don't have a boss, and I make enough money that I'm supporting myself and I'm living the life that I want to live. Is that maybe the best way of saying it? So am I a successful entrepreneur? Yes. Am I the best entrepreneur that I can be? I'm the best entrepreneur that I want to be, maybe is how to say it. And that's just the reality of it. I think that I'm already past that time in my life where, when I was doing interviews for my books or for my radio shows, whatever it was back in the day, I was asked more often than not, so what's next for you? Like, what do you, 5 years down the road, where do you see yourself? And I never had an answer for that because I always just sort of waited for those opportunities to come. I never, my goal when I was, in high school or even maybe a little bit younger was I wanted to be a newspaper reporter. That was really what I wanted to do. And so did I think that what I've projected, hey, 15 years you're going to be on the radio, though. You're not ever going to be an actual newspaper reporter full-time for any great length of time, but you're going to spend 15 years on the radio in Hollywood, on red carpets, talking to celebrities, texting celebrities on a first-name basis with celebrities, traveling and being paid to vacation, and that's just kind of the way things are thrown at you in life. And so this episode, this final Pride Biz Showcase is going to be me talking, and I'm going to be answering the questions that were sent in an indirect way. So I'm going to be telling stories, and some of these things are questions that people answered, or things that people have asked. And so from very early on, I started to write. And when I would say maybe about 10 years old, we would have these family get-togethers. I was always very excited to go to them because I got to see my cousins. Now, I was the youngest of my generation, so there's about maybe 3 years between me. Yeah, about 3 years or so. I've got some cousins. My oldest cousin is 10 years older than me, almost exactly, and then there's a whole bunch in the middle. And I was always the baby. And so I was always too little to play hockey with the boys because they'd be roughhousing, or I was always too, and so I was left out in that regard. Now, it's not like I was not included, but I just wasn't allowed to play. So I would watch, and I also, quite honestly, I didn't really want to get hit and hurt playing games like that. So it's not like I was being held against my will and be like, no, you can't do it. But there were times, and so for me, I was kind of like, as I started to get older then, at this time now, maybe 10, 11 years old, and one of my aunts and uncles had a computer in their office, in their house, in their spare bedroom, and I would just go on that, and I would start to write stories. I would write like a one-page story, and this was back on those printers that had the little ridges on the side, or not the ridge, whatever you call the coiled. What the older generation knows what I'm talking about. The younger people are like, "What the hell is he talking about?" You had to tear off that little perforated sort of thing on the sides, and that printer that would go back and forth. So, I would spend a lot of time writing basically a one-page short story, and I still actually have one of them that it was basically just talking about being at a carnival, and then talking about a roller coaster going all the way up and then spinning around and going upside down, and that's just what I did. And so what I would do then, after I would have to get help printing it because I didn't know how to work it, they would come and help me print it, and then I would go and show it around. And so that was my way of getting attention in front of everybody. And so here I am expressing creativity, and they're kind of, the adults are sort of like, well, the other kids are playing. Like, why aren't you, go play? Why aren't you doing that? And that was my thing, was that once I was old enough to kind of figure out that I didn't want to be roughhousing and doing sports or whatever it was that the other kids were doing, I wanted to write. And maybe that was why I did it, was because I was getting that attention, that positive reinforcement. And it's not like I was sitting there and watching people read it. I almost kind of shyly just sort of handed it to somebody and then kind of walked away and then waited for that feedback. And that's really how I started in writing. And so then when I got into, and I talked about this the other week, that in elementary school I was, I was in the choir, I was in every musical that we did in junior high, and I did professional theater outside of that, and I took piano lessons. So there was always sort of that creative side to me. And even as a kid too, I would make a restaurant at home. So I would, write up a menu and pretend I had a calculator that had the printing tape on it. And I would also just make tons of things out of construction paper. And, I made signs. I was big into signs. I kind of made like billboards, and I had a light bright that would shine on it like it was a billboard. I just, I needed that platform to sort of express myself. And it was great. It was so fun. I played with Lego until I was 18 years old. I used to reenact TV shows with Lego in my bedroom. I would have, initially I would have the coffee table full of a big television studio. I would reenact the Ricky Lake show with a big Lego studio. And then when I got a little bit too older, when we had family get-togethers, it would have to be removed off the coffee table and then basically told to me okay, put this in your room now. It's not on the coffee table. And I would sit there. My room was sort of my own little zone. And it was this creative outlet. Like, here I am envisioning this world, this Lego world, and just getting lost in it. And let me tell you, it sounds nerdy as all hell, but when I think about it now, fast forward all these years later to what kids and teenagers and everything are doing with sex and drugs and selfies and sexually exploiting themselves and whatever else, it was just a totally different world. And so when I look back at that, it's like, you know what? If that's what I was doing when I was 16, 17 years old, I'll take being a nerd over a kid who's getting shot and killed because I'm in a gang or whatever it is, or I'm getting into fights at school. I went to the toughest school in my province in Canada, so it was called. I never saw one fight because the kids were respectful of each other. If you didn't like people, you just kind of stayed away from them. You didn't really get in their business and they didn't in yours. And so, in high school, I was very professional. I knew that I wanted to write. There was a counselor there who, she was setting students up with job placements. And so you'd go to job shadow for a day. Okay, I want to be a lawyer. All right, well, you'll go to a law office for a day, follow around a lawyer, see if it's what you want to do. And for me, I knew that I wanted to be a writer. So they set me up, now get this, with the Winnipeg Police Service. So, that right there is a very big deal. And I think at the time, I don't really recall exactly, but I think at the time it was meant to just be a few times, maybe a week or two. Not every single day, but okay, I'll go on Monday and then Thursday and then next Tuesday and then next Friday, And I loved it so much. They liked working with me. Here I am, this 16-year-old kid working with these adults. And then I was the first student to do 2 job placements at the same time. So not only was I with the Winnipeg Police Service, then I was with the CBC, which is Canada's national public broadcaster. And so again, you're looking at this basically, sort of like a government-run operation, or government-funded anyway. And here I am, this guy. And now, because I was obsessed with news, these are people that I was watching on TV. So if you want to talk about being almost like starstruck in a roundabout way, that's exactly what I experienced going into the CBC. And here I am sitting in their production meetings and their news meetings and all this stuff. And I was just like, wow. But everybody was so welcoming because as a writer, you kind of just had this bond. We just had this kinship, and they knew and so they were mentoring me, and it was really cool to experience that. Coincidentally, by the way, just one more quick point on the CBC. I was paired up with Danielle Kiefler, who's since passed from cancer, I believe, many, many years ago. And she was a lesbian. And I remember it kind of being, one of my relatives had said, oh, well, we know Danielle. You know that she's a lesbian, as though it was sort of like this weird kind of, okay, oh, great. Like, I didn't, whatever. And so maybe that's why I got along well with her, because, maybe she knew that I was, or, so that's that. And so I was focused on writing. I wasn't focused on being a kid at all. I didn't take driver's ed. I wasn't going to movies with groups of friends or anything like that. I was very much a loner, and I was okay with that. Because, and I don't exactly know why, it certainly had nothing to do with the gay thing. I don't want to make it seem like I was singled out or I was ostracized or made to feel unwelcome. If anything, I think I was the one doing that. It's like almost I was saying, I don't know that you kids are on my level. And again, hey, maybe that's an ego. Maybe that's, cockiness. I don't even know what the word would be. But that's how I felt. I felt that I was never able to really sort of, I felt like I was on a higher level than the fellow students, because here I am like working in these places with adults, and I just wasn't. I didn't have to go to school. I was out of school maybe 2 or 3 days a week, and it was that responsibility that I felt, and it was a really good feeling. So that's kind of how it all started. And I've worked from a young age. So even when I was like 14, 15, working out at the lake at the golf course there, I was, working in the kitchen as a dishwasher and then a food prep assistant. And, it was a summer job, obviously. I had to go back to school come fall. So it's not like I worked there for 2 or 3 months or whatever it was. But I mentioned a few weeks ago that I, as an employee, was fired from a big majority of the jobs that I had. And you have to remember, though, that when you're, let's say, a college student or whatever it is, you're probably taking that retail job or something that's just going to be temporary anyway, right? I was so passionate about writing. That's what I was going to do. That was my thing. So you put me in the kitchen of Red Lobster. Well, I had fun there, and I was 16 or 17 at the time. I was the first person really with a digital camera. And so I would, go around the kitchen, we'd take pictures, goofy pictures of each other, and we'd get silly. And then I created a website, and I started posting the pictures for our little group of people. And I knew the boss didn't like me, the general manager didn't like me. There were so many rumors that, he was a homophobe and blah, 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 blah. And I guess either he caught wind or something happened, and all of a sudden I'm called in one day and I was fired. And I was told that, there was breaking confidentiality and whatever. And I'm sitting there going, but wait a second, your assistant managers at the restaurant are goofing around and participating and, giving content for this little, I guess you'd call it a blog now. I mean, blogs weren't really a thing back in 1999. And so I was very confused by that. And I was kind of like, oh my God, I just got fired by like a big company. This was horrible. And then of course, very embarrassing as well, because you've got to, I left home, my parents thinking that I'm working at Red Lobster. And so, when you show up less than an hour later, it's kind of like, yeah. And so it's humiliating. Of course it is, right? You're 17 years old, and if you've been the kid who has that reputation of kind of having a smart mouth, and that's it's really embarrassing to go and tell your mom like, oh, I was fired from my job, but I was, and it didn't crush me because, like I said, I didn't have that allegiance to it. It was just a job because I was making money, and that's that, right? I was still in school. It's not like it was my career and all of a sudden now I'm devastated, I've got nothing, right? But certainly that first time that you're fired, I mean, it was pretty eye-opening. It was very, very, it kind of makes you think about your attitude. It makes you think how you're treated as well. And so, there was that. And so when I had all these different, retail jobs or whatever it was, I knew that that's not what I wanted to do. So I didn't have that passion for it. Now, don't get me wrong. I was always a very, very good employee. I would show up on time. I was neurotic about things like that. So whether I liked the job or not, I made sure that I was on time, that I completed the work. I didn't dawdle. I might have had an attitude. I might have had a sharp tongue, but I always had a very, very intense work ethic. And that's something that I think that all entrepreneurs need to have, because this is what I say about our team at Speak Free Media. We've all worked together for many, many years. And I don't know that I don't think there's anybody who's new here. I think that Bonnie Winters I've known and worked with for over 16, 17 years now. Raylene, was our boss at a publishing company. She's now our accountant and kind of running, the money side of things. And I'm just trying to think. Tim started out on, he ran actually, or owned the internet radio station that started my show Top of the Charts. So that's at least 16 years that I've known him as well. And, Suzanne, I guess, would be the newest producer, and she's been here for about 4 or 5 years now. And that's something that I've jokingly said either on social media or on this show before, is that if you're a snowflake, if you're easily offended, if you are somebody who doesn't like to, be made fun of or teased, you're not going to make it in our work environment. And now you could go and say, well, that's workplace harassment. That's whatever. It's harassment if you see it as that. Now, I'm not going and saying that we're going around playing grab ass, although sometimes that happens. So we just have this understanding that we're all kind of the same. We're all cut from the same cloth. We all have the same sense of humor. We're zany. We're weird. We have our moments of fits, and we have our disagreements and battles, and she's a bitch and he's an asshole, and we'll call each other that in meetings. There's no HR department. Nobody's running out crying because we're all adults. We're all mature. And so one of the people who had emailed in asking questions saying, what advice, though, would you have for the newer generation? If I'm an entrepreneur and I'm going to hire staff, the younger generation, 19, 20-some-year-olds, have a different work ethic than me as a 39-year-old, or even somebody who's early 30s. And so that's where I kind of just directly said, I probably would never hire somebody for my business and what I do, unless it's something specific where I don't have to, let's say it's a graphic designer and they're just really good at it and they can take the direction, they can turn it around, fine. But when it comes to, and if I need it on their own time, that's like they'll work through the night, whatever. But if it was interacting with, a 20-some-year-old on a day-to-day basis, they need to have that maturity of a 30-some-year-old to fit in here. And, you could have all the education qualifications, you can have whatever. But if you have this entitlement vibe where, you're going to randomly roll in at whatever time, or you're going to, have your diva fits, or you're going to be sitting on your phone or stuff like that, that's just not going to fly here. And so that's something that I kind of look to. Now, back when it's funny because my computer is flashing. I just got an email from a VP of Warner Brothers. Like, isn't that crazy? I started out in my parents' basement when I was, mid-20s, and now here I am just emailing VPs at these billion-dollar companies going, hey, do you have a such and such? Hey, can you get me this? Can you do that? And, I've interviewed their celebrities and things like that for many, many years. But anyway, I remember when I first started out. Now, I had just incorporated Speak Free Media. I didn't have any staff. I was producing this radio show out of my parents' basement for a couple of years now at that point. And I was working at this publishing company that I mentioned. And the other staff had left. They've moved on to other things. And I was kind of like, I think now is the time for me to leave and start my own company. Coincidentally, it's almost, I think it was July something. So we're coming up to the anniversary date of the date that the company was incorporated. But, I was kind of like, all right, I've got a bank loan of $3,000, which again isn't crazy, it's not a huge amount of money. But when you look at what I was going to be doing, which was really just kind of writing, I didn't have any startup costs. I mean, I already had the equipment to record and I had a computer and things like that, right? So there wasn't anything that I needed to go out and buy and invest in. So I used some of that money to pay a guy, or actually I think it was 2 or 3 different people, to try to do ad sales for my radio show. Now, at this point, I got to tell you, I was on the radio and being listened to by upwards of 100,000, 200,000 people on internet radio. And so now when I look at it and go, wow, that could have really been quite lucrative had I had the right salesperson. But I ended up getting a student, a broadcast student, the first time, it was the summertime, like I said, it was July, whatever, and I said, here's the deal. I need you to just send out emails all day. I've got the template. I know. I just need you to go to websites, find the marketing person, and send them this, copy and paste this email and send it to them. And then do it again. And then do it again. And then do it again. I had no interest in web surfing all day. I had no interest. I wanted to be the creative person. That's what I was going to do. And so this guy's like, you're going to pay me $10 an hour. Now, again, a long time ago, you're going to pay me $10 an hour to sit on your couch with your laptop and just get email addresses and send emails. Yes. And I even said to him, if you end up getting a $1,000 sale today from an email, we're going to the beach tomorrow. We're already calling it a week or a day, and we're off to go and drink on the beach, and and so I think that was sort of motivating to him at the very beginning. And very quickly he found it to be boring. And now again, like I said, this is before the days of Facebook and all that stuff too. But he was texting his girlfriend almost all day. So here I am, this guy I was in my office in my house, and he was in the living room. I was on my computer, he was on my laptop. And I'm running around because I think it was Paula Abdul had just left American Idol, and that was a big deal. So I had to redo my entertainment headline show. I was doing entertainment hits for other local stations, and I'm running back and forth. I had to get my computer from him for a few seconds. And every time I'd go into the living room, he'd be on his phone texting his girlfriend. And so eventually in the afternoon, I kind of just confronted him, and I was like, here's the deal. You got to realize that this is my money, and I don't have a lot of it right now. So if I'm paying you like for an hour, I'm expecting an hour's worth of work. And see, but that's the thing. When you go and confront somebody, and I'm using that word, it's not like I had an argument with him, but when you go and sort of point that out, now suddenly it's like, okay, this Jeremy guy's an asshole, and it doesn't actually make me want to work harder. And that's the struggle as an entrepreneur. If you're hiring people, you've got to realize that, right? They might not appreciate that it's your money that you've worked hard for, that you're paying them with, because when you work for the big companies, well, it's somebody else's money. What's the big deal? No, when you're an entrepreneur, this is my money. And at the time, like I said, it was a loan, so it's not like it was even that I had earned it. I still had to pay that shit back. So that would be my thing, is be very selective over who you hire. It's not enough just to, let's say, hire friends or somebody that you know, because that can be troublesome. Let me tell you, so this is leading into another question that somebody has asked. I didn't exactly hire somebody. I mean, I brought them, for our radio shows, we were doing travel, tourism programming. So I'm sorry, you're telling me to go to a break. We haven't even had our first break of the show, and we're 22 minutes into this. Okay, I'm going to tell you the travel story and the travel bloggers coming up right after this on the Pride Biz Showcase presented by buffboybrewing.com.
Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
This statement has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. No offense, but are you a little fat when you look in the mirror? How do you like to learn the secret to losing 3 to 5 pounds a week without joining the gym or going through any crazy diets? It's called Body Sculpt RX. For the last 2 decades, we've helped countless people lose thousands of pounds. And now, it's your turn. Learn how to lose weight with one simple phone call and no prescription needed. You'll see an amazing difference in a matter of days. Don't believe us? We'll offer you a risk-free money-back guarantee. So, if you're ready to start losing weight, call right now and get a free month supply with your first order of Body Sculpt RX. Call now. You have nothing to lose but the pounds. 800-459-6838. 800-459-6838. 800-459-6838. That's 800-459-6838.
Listen up, guys. Are you experiencing any of the following? Fatigue, less drive, poor performance? If so, you may be one of the nearly 30 million men in the U.S. today dealing with ED. But did you know you don't have to pay hundreds for a prescription anymore? And you don't have to deal with the hassle of seeing the doctor or the embarrassment of going to the pharmacy for a certain pill. Now with one free call, you can find out how Herbal Virility Max can help you feel like a man again. For over a decade, Herbal Virility Max has helped guys just like you put a smile back on their face with improved performance and drive. Call today and ask about our buy one, get one free offer. Save the money, save the hassles, and get the better blue pill. Dial 800-578-0179. That's 800-578-0179. 800-578-0179.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on the Scribble as we continue our Pride Biz Showcase. And I was talking about, the question that I got previously was about hiring friends, working with people that you know and get along with. Again, if you have the same work ethic, then great. Now, here's the deal. Here's why it worked with Bonnie, Raylene, and us from the publishing company, was that we worked together as coworkers first. We weren't friends first. We just clicked. That's the difference between bringing on, a relative, family member, friend, whoever it is, okay? So it's great that you want to help somebody out with an opportunity, and if you've got a shit ton of money, then fine, go for it. But when it's just you, and it's your money, like I said about that guy who was texting, then it's a completely different story. And so I was fine after working with Bonnie. And Bonnie, I still talk to we will have a 2-hour phone call every day, even though we work together and we still do, we were at the publishing company she was there a little bit longer than I was, but we would take, lunch together as a group, all of us editors, we were magazine editors. We would go for lunch every single day, almost without fail. Sometimes somebody would stay back, but we would go walking, we would go to a restaurant, we would have, we'd order pizza, whatever it was. And we would talk throughout the weekend. That's just how well we got along. Now Bonnie, this is where you're going to think, oh my God, you're telling how old she is. Bonnie's sons are my age, and I'm going to be 40 this summer. Bonnie just celebrated her 50th wedding anniversary. So I'm saying this in comparison. Me, this 20-some-year-old gay guy, Bonnie, who was from out in the boonies, who was, if I can be so bold to say, was quite almost homophobic when I, first met her, the comments that she would make about same-sex marriage and things like that. And now I flirt with her husband and sit on his lap out at the lake. So, things have come full circle. And anyway, so the point is that we all just vibed, we gelled, and we came from that generation where we weren't sitting and looking at our phones the second that we sat down, because you didn't have that when we started working at that place. And then we saw there was a graphic designer who came in, and she was, very early 20s. I don't remember how old she is now, or how old she was at the time. She had her own pink wireless mouse that she brought in for the computer. She would have her little rat dog, her little Paris Hilton dog, on a little pillow on her desk. And we would look at this and go, I'm sorry, you've worked here for like 3 days, and you're that comfy? You're that comfortable? And so for me, and again, going back to the entrepreneur thing, what I would look for now, and this is, and I don't care how old you are, what I would look for is, does somebody look at their phone on their first date? And what I mean by that is, am I focused on that first, let's say that first 2 hours, whether it's training, if I'm whatever, if I'm already looking down at my phone or excusing myself to go to the bathroom and look at the phone, then I feel that I've hired the wrong person. Because if it's your first day, if you can't pull yourself away from your phone for the first 2 fucking hours to watch the, introduction video and meet the team and whatever, get the fuck out. And that's, it sounds harsh, it sounds cruel, but at the end of the day, I need your creative juices, I need your mindset right here in this room, in this moment. We will have, first of all, in our meetings, phones are not even allowed, and I think that maybe people felt threatened by that at the very beginning, but at the same time, we're all from that generation where we're not clutching our phones all the time, that we don't need that. When I'm hosting the show, like right now, it is not near me. It's not here because it's distraction. Like I don't need that. My focus and my energy and my attention right now is on this show that I'm being paid a lot of money to host. And so that would be my thing, is that I would subconscious, or not, but on the down low, I would make note of that. I would watch. If you've hired a group of people, or if whoever's training them, whoever's doing the not the initiation, the, you know what I'm talking about, the HR, I would like to see, if you come back and say to me, oh yeah, Sharon or Tom or whoever the person's name is, oh yeah, 10 minutes in was looking at their phone, gone. But anyway, that's something that I would want to be reported back to me is, if they didn't, what am I saying? Orientation. Thank you. Initiation. I don't know why, but see, this is where I depend on my team. They know the word I meant, then they feed it to me in my ear, and I look like a rock star because I knew the word, even though I didn't. But yeah, that would be my thing. Keep them busy for 4 hours straight before lunch. If you have them for the entire morning without looking at their phone. And then see, and that's something also too that I used to observe at the publishing company or other places where I worked, is how comfy does this person get right away? If their phone is on their desk on the first, in the first hour, I don't know. It's still too, that's like, okay, you're just asking for distraction. And I don't like that. And I would do it. I would when I would start a job, I would keep it, in my pocket or whatever. And then maybe not the first day. I might excuse myself to the bathroom a few times just to go and look. But yeah, never did I feel comfortable enough to go and plop my phone on my desk, especially the first day. Absolutely not. No, I just didn't. Because, like I said, I'm here to do the job. I mentioned that about, my work ethic in the first segment, was that's where my focus is. So that's what I would say to you, depending on what the industry is or what you're having to do. Some people obviously are forced to be away from their phone, depending on what if you're serving tables at a restaurant or whatever, maybe you'll duck out and look at your phone or whatever, but that would be my thing. And yeah, I have no patience. I wrote a book called Put Down Your Damn Phone already, so I'm of all people, the one who's going to call you out on your cell phone use. If we're in a meeting, it's like, yeah, put it down, we're talking. And because I also just feel, and again, this is my opinion and I'm allowed to have that because it's my show, and if you don't like it, piss off. But it also, to me, is a slap in the face where it makes it feel like your life or whoever it is, whether it's your social media or whatever, is more important than what we're doing here and why I'm paying you. And I know that at the end of the day, the paycheck is very, very important to you. So now there's obviously circumstances where, your grandma's dying of corona in the hospital, so you're going to have I get it. I'm not completely heartless like that. But I'm saying is that, for a regular creative meeting that's maybe a half hour, you can leave your phone at your seat. You don't have to bring it into the meeting room because, your friends that are texting you or the social media notifications, if they don't pertain to this job, then, And so that was where I made a mistake one time where I was about to do travel programming and our scheduling was a little bit weird. It was in the summer. I was going to a destination for about, I think it was 4 or 5 days. And we didn't have anybody who could go the entire time. And the destination wasn't an easy commute. Like we flew to, it was in northern Canada, and that's as much as I'll say because I don't want to start giving specifics because people hear that and go, oh, that was when you, oh. But there was a woman that I'd worked with a couple years prior, and I was doing a writing contract for a company, and I was doing some PR stuff for them, and she worked in the call center. And coincidentally, she ended up living about 2 or 3 blocks away from me. And so I ended up getting to know her, and I got to know a bunch of the people that worked in the call center. And I knew that she was, married, had 2 kids. When I would walk my dogs, I would see her outside, and, her family's out there, and I knew them, and, the husband seemed nice, and the kids were a little obnoxious. I don't care for kids. And so we kind of became quote-unquote friends. I wouldn't say that, we were really, like, talking outside of that job or anything, but, we'd make chit-chat, or if I saw her in the store or something, we'd talk. And she'd left the company, and her parents owned their own little boutique store, and she was taking over some social media stuff for that, and I was kind of like, well, you're pretty good at the social media stuff that you're doing, and I said, I've got this travel tourism programming that we're going to be doing in a few weeks, and the tourism board basically pays for somebody, pays for producers or whoever to come, so it's not like it's going to cost you anything. I said, you left the job, you're kind of doing your own thing now. would you want to come and you'd be my production assistant? You'd be my sort of my sidekick. So you'd be, checking the batteries in the microphone and the cameras, making sure things are, going smooth. You're not my housekeeper and my slave or anything like that. But I mean, you're kind of, for lack of a better term, you're going to be doing the bitch work is the way you would sort of say it, right? You're going to be, you're going to be grabbing the camera bag. You're going to be doing this. You're going to be making sure that the collar of my shirt is okay. I mean, you're going to be assisting. And she was like, yeah, great. And so word got around to the staff at that place that she was going to be coming because she ended up posting on social media, going to insert destination here, free trip, bitches. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. So I had to tell her about that. I was like, I'm told about a post that you did. Kind of tough now because the tourism board had already booked the flights and things. So they had her name. They've already paid for things. So it's really hard to back out now, right? But that was kind of the red flag of, oh shit, maybe I didn't get the most professional kind of... So she was like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I said, no, that's fine. It's just, because that's all you need now is then the tourism board to be Googling her or whatever, or looking her up on social media. And it's like, oh, free trip. Because that totally delegitimizes me as well, right? I lose the credibility at that point. And so people were kind of like, oh my God, you're going with her. That's going to be interesting. Now, like I said, I didn't work with her on a daily basis. But it seemed odd to me that people were saying this. And I was just kind of like, all right, whatever. Maybe they're just jealous or maybe they think we're going to have an affair or whatever. I don't know. And so she was very excited. She was kind of like, oh, do I need to get anything, before? I said, no, it's all kind of taken care of. We just this is the itinerary. This is what we're doing. I'm terrible with names. You're gonna as we're on our way somewhere, you're gonna have to remind me that this person's name is whatever. When we meet them, I need you to say their name again when we meet them, just so that it's fresh in my mind, and kind of just give her the rundown. I mean, when we were producing these travel tourism shows, they were very basic. It wasn't like a huge deal, and so we get to the airport. Her husband drives us to the airport very, very early in the morning, and this was when it's still you can't have your liquids and all that stuff in your bag. And I guess maybe she hadn't flown or she didn't know. She had a shit ton of makeup. And all of a sudden, I had gone through security, I'm okay, and I hear her getting very loud at security. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm already through, so I mean, I can't go back. And she's having a shit fit because her makeup has to go. Because she called me. I was on one side of security, she's on the other, and she's freaking out and yelling at me and swearing at me. And I said, well, what? Because it was basically my fault. Because I said, just pack your stuff. Like, it's fine. It's not up to me to tell her the rules of airport security, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of one of those things where do your own research, figure it out. 9/11 and all things changed many, many years earlier. And so she's freaking out that she was going to have to throw out her makeup or have it mailed to herself or do whatever. But security was not letting her through with all of it. She could check it in her suitcase. She can do this. So she calls her husband. Now, again, we got there at about like 5, 6 in the morning. Her husband's almost already home, and she's ripping him a new one because he doesn't want to come back to the airport to get her stuff and then FedEx it to her, which is going to cost about $200. Again, we're going to a very rural area. And it would take, a few days anyway. And so she's freaking out at him. She's screaming at him. Eventually, he ends up coming back to get it. Thankfully, we got there early enough that there was still time for her to get through security in time and whatever. And she finds me in the boarding lounge before we get on the plane and is, again, just going off on me. And I was like, oh, my God, this is like... We're going to be fighting like cats and dogs for this. And I'm supposed to be the boss here, right? She's my producer, quote-unquote producer, assistant, whatever. And she's telling me off and she's yelling at me. And I thought, if I'm the boss, this is going to look really embarrassing that, oh, this is my employee, like totally losing on me. But she's a loose cannon, and how do you keep that in check? Maybe that's where I wasn't the best boss because I'm like, I've never had to deal with something like that. Because like I said, I've worked with people for a very long time and we haven't had to deal with anything like that. So I just kind of lean back in the seat and I'm just staring up at the ceiling and she's going off on me and just going off on me and her husband's an asshole. He's such a dickhead. He's such a fucker, blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, whatever. And we were on the plane. I had the window seat. She was in the middle and she just had her arms folded and just stared straight ahead the whole time. I would try to make small talk. I was just getting the soundtrack and I thought, oh my God, I've got like 5 days with this bitch. Really, I've got 5 days with this. I want to call her so many names right now because I'm just flashing back to that memory. And I thought, this is going to be a trip. And if she blows my cover, where it's basically kind of like, oh, sorry, so you brought your friend here? We're paying for your friend to come? I mean, she could totally screw me over. She could totally lie and say, oh yeah, no, I'm his neighbor, and blah, blah. Even though she wasn't. She, like I said, she's a few blocks away, and I'd worked with her. She was an associate, a colleague at the other place. And yeah. And so then when we land we had connecting flights, we land at the one airport. Then she's all of a sudden sexting her husband and flirty and whatever. And I was like, I don't know, is she bipolar? This is very weird, because she just hated him when we left one city, and now we land, and now all of a sudden she's like having sex with him from, half the country away. And it was kind of like, wow, it just that alone, it was enough for me to go and say, never am I bringing somebody outside of our circle. And because, when you're doing these travel things and everybody hears about your upcoming trip and, oh, I'd love to go to Vancouver. Oh, I'd love to check out Vegas. Oh, I'd love to come to Los Angeles, whatever. And I always kind of would brush it off and go, oh, well, maybe next time, or, oh, maybe whatever. I remember emailing back home and saying, nobody outside of our circle is ever coming on one of these trips again. I don't care who it is. It's not somebody's friend. It's not somebody's relative. It's not even my brother, who I would trust to, do a decent job. Nobody is coming again. I mean, I don't even have time to tell you the whole rest of the story. Very quickly, though, to summarize, she ended up sleeping with at least one person that I know of. Well, I would say one person, potentially also a tourism representative. It was, yeah. And there was silent treatments. It was a shit show. And I mean, I can laugh about it now because it's long gone and whatever. But in that moment, I mean, I was freaking out. She could totally ruin my relationship with this tourism board that we'd worked with a few times before. Yeah, it was pretty nuts. So again, going back to that, be very, very selective of, who you partner with, who you work with, because it's just not worth it to have somebody who can basically take you down. Let me shift gears though and talk about attitudes in general, because when I was on it was the same destination, different trip though, different time. I had dinner. I spent about a day and a half with two bloggers. This is where, if you're a trained journalist, if you're a trained broadcaster, you look at bloggers and I guess YouTubers or podcasters respectively, you look at that as sort of a lower form of broadcast. Now, I realize the irony or the hypocrisy of like, wait a second, you're telling this story on a podcast? Yes, I am. But you have to realize that the way broadcasting has evolved, you kind of just end up having to do that anyway, right? Even though I was still hosting a syndicated radio show, we had to do a supplementary product as well, which ended up being this podcast. And so here we are now all these years later. And so this is that newer generation that I was talking about, the 20-some-year-olds. And because they're a blogger and they lived in Toronto, they have this holier-than-thou attitude, because I was just this guy from the Canadian prairies. And they were big into social media, and I never have been. And so I had dinner with them. The tourism person wasn't there. It was just the three of us at this dinner. And they were kind of sizing me up. And I just sort of thought, okay. Now, like I said, I've had great success in my career, right? Hollywood red carpets. Now as I'm talking, I get another email from another vice president of publicity at a TV network. And I've never been, I'll jokingly name drop. I'll jokingly kind of throw things like that in there just for emphasis and to be sarcastic and funny. But I certainly am not sitting there looking at my phone going, oh my God, I've got to interview Jeff Probst from Survivor tomorrow. Oh my God, I've got Dolly Parton calling tomorrow. Oh my God, we don't have time. We don't have time to run the Kelly Clarkson interview. Oh my God, what are we going to do, you guys? I've never. Like I said, as a joke, maybe. And so these bloggers they're looking me up on social media as we're having dinner. It was very awkward to me. And so they're trying to, figure out, I've never heard of your radio show. What is it called? Oh, I'm sorry, because you're from Toronto, you've heard of every single fucking radio show in North America? Really? And same thing with authors. I said this to you guys a couple weeks ago, where you're an author, and if you call yourself best-selling author, suddenly people are looking up the Amazon reviews. Oh, your book only has 4 reviews, blah, blah. Yeah, but it sells out in every fucking Walmart in my city, and Costco, and every other local bookstore. And so it's just kind of weird how these people try to size you up and sort of go like, well, I've never heard of you, so you're not really famous. I never said I was famous. You said I was famous. I didn't say that I was famous. And it was very funny because they were trying to downplay what I was doing and what I'd accomplished. And again, when they're asking me about so who have you interviewed? As though, I'm just this young kid who, I don't have contacts in Hollywood or whatever it was. It was very strange to me because I've never done that to somebody. Again, if you're an entrepreneur, this is why we're doing this whole series on the podcast, is I want to sort of give advice and tips from what I've learned and what I've experienced. And so they're trying to make it seem like your Instagram, you only have so many people. Yeah, read the fucking bio. It actually says that I have no interest in Instagram. Oh, actually, sorry. I don't even think I was on Instagram at the time. That's right. I wasn't on Instagram, but I was on Twitter. And so they looked that up and, so you tweeted whatever. And so I finally just said, that's actually my staff. I haven't even had my Twitter on today. So that's my team back, in Winnipeg or West Hollywood that's tweeting for me. So I thought, you know what, let me just have fun with this because these people are ridiculous. They think that I'm a nobody. I think they're nobodies. Let's just humor myself. And so that was what I had done, was I was kind of like, yeah, no. So they would say, I've done some TV. I've only ever done broadcast. I've never done radio. And I was like, but what do you think? Radio is broadcast. And so that's right there how I knew that the younger generation just, you don't even get it. TV and radio equals that TV plus radio equals broadcast. Those are the same thing. Whether it's a visual medium or an audio, audible medium. Broadcast is broadcast. And so that's where I had to school them in that as well. And so they would say, I've done the morning shows. I did like a travel thing with them. And so I said, if you don't mind me asking, like, how much did they pay you for like the morning spots? Oh, they didn't pay. They just promoted my blog. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I went and spoke to my high school. I did kind of like a little thing at one of their monthly assemblies. And so I was talking with the kids. So then I said again, I'm like, how much did they pay you for that? Oh my God, that was my school. I didn't have them pay. Oh, okay. So I said, so when I've gone to my high school, they've actually paid me $250 to be there for an hour to talk to the kids. That's how much. You had a school pay you? And I was like, yeah, the schools have money. Let's not, those are government funded from, in our country. They have money. Don't make it seem like the schools don't have money. They have money. They have money. And so I would just do things like that and go, okay. And then I would say, okay, but on a trip like this, on a tourism trip like we're doing, again, how much do you charge for the tourism board, like to bring you out here and stuff like that? Well, they're paying for the trip. I said, no, I get that. But I said, how much are they paying you then? Like, are they cutting you a check as well for this though? And they thought that was just unheard of. Like, yeah, no, they're paying for the flights and the hotel and everything that we're doing. And I said, right. But are they directly paying you as well? Are you getting money in your bank account from this? Are you getting a check at the end of this? Are you getting some kind of are you getting compensation for this? And that seemed totally foreign to them. And I said, so this is where I wanted to do one of my little diva things, go, okay, ladies, I need you to sit back and listen to this. And actually, as I'm telling you guys this story, I just put my arm on the back of the chair. So I said, I'm here right now. Yes, they've paid for me. And you know what? They even flew me here first class. Were you guys first class? No, you weren't? Okay, so you're bloggers. And so I kind of sort of went off in a very professional way. I said, here's the deal. This tourism board flew me first class. Yes, they're paying for all the excursions and everything as well. They're also paying our company to promote it and put together programming. Like, this is kind of the whole deal. And so if you're not doing that, then you're just one of those people who's like an influencer. That was actually the first time that I'd heard the term influencer. I didn't know. I mean, I know the general definition of influence. I know what that means. But influencer in the realm of social media, I didn't know what that meant. So they were telling me that I was an influencer. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't know if you're trying to flatter me, educate me, whatever. But I'm an influencer, great. And that's where there's that novelty of getting free shit, right? I just saw the other day, there's a guy who's like this big pageant guy who's won this, and he's endorsing all these things. So companies send him free stuff for Pride, and now he's putting videos and everything on the social media. And I'm sitting there going, you're advertising. So you got a free bag of fucking Skittles, and you're advertising. You're using your audience to promote this. Like, what are you getting from it? What are you getting from it? Nothing. And it was the same thing that I said to my husband, who's 70-some thousand Instagram followers and was getting protein powders for free from companies. And I said, you have to realize how much $70,000 or 70,000 eyeballs or sets of eyeballs would cost a company. And so when we first got together years ago, I said to him, no, here's the deal. I'm taking over. I'm managing your modeling career. If companies reach out and want to send you free shit, you forward them to me. Because we're getting a paycheck along with the free shit. You're not just, I'm going to go and say this protein powder is wonderful and pose in my, underwear holding this thing and get them business. I said, that's just stupid. That's just stupid. So yes, free stuff is great. Get a paycheck along with it. And so that's what I learned just from that was really the first two kind of bloggers or this influencer crowd. That was the first time that I had really interacted and sort of got to understand how they operate. And so for them to look at what I was doing as very old school and dinosaur-like and very elderly in a sense, I kind of sat there going, but you have to look at how the tourism board looked at each of our situations. They saw you as a food blogger from Toronto. You flew, and I'm not even bragging about it flying first class. I'm just saying the expense and how they viewed it, right? You're flying somebody first class, and then the other two people are getting the back of the plane. Like that act right there is telling you how they view our respective work, and how they respect us. And so that to me was very telling. So they didn't cut you a paycheck. They're just bringing you along for the ride. They didn't put you first class. So there you go. Now, the other thing that these gals did, which really pissed me off, was they were complaining about the free swag that they got. Now, we got, you typically would get a backpack, a t-shirt, a hat, a notepad, maybe a coffee mug, a travel mug, something like that. Without fail, you get like the little welcome basket of stuff. Let me be absolutely honest with you. I would throw that stuff in a closet right when I got home. Maybe we would use a coffee mug or a water bottle or something. But for the most part, I didn't want this shit. I didn't, it's nice, great, give it to me, fine. I wasn't going to refuse it because that just seems rude because they put this all together. But I didn't want any of it. But I'm not going to go now and complain and be like, oh my God, another hat. Oh my God. I just got a hat. Like, be grateful. Be grateful. Don't be a cunt. Be grateful. Truth, that bothered me the most. Because also, too, I'd worked with that tourism board many times, so I had a great relationship with them. But it was kind of like, you're bitching about getting a hat or a backpack that you're not going to use. Give it to a nephew. Give it to, a brother, sister. Give it to a school. But why are you complaining? And so that was the attitude they had, though, was just like, oh my God, more swag. Oh my God, I don't even need this. I just thought, this is why I would never want to work with that generation, the people that have that mindset. It goes to something that Bill Maher spoke about the other day when I don't have time to recap the whole thing because they're already wrapping me up. We're at a time we got to do another break. But it was just kind of like, the mindset that people have, the attitude that it's just keep it in your head, but don't complain for the sake of complaining. Like I gave you that example about, I've got the Kelly Clarkson interview. Oh my God, we got to do this. I've got to wake up to interview, whoever, Ted Danson. I can't even think of another celebrity just off the top of my head. But I've interviewed several hundred celebrities, just so we're clear. But it was just sort of weird. But in a way, it was them bragging, right? In their own way, it was, just that them complaining. But it really just makes you look like such a bitch. It really does. And maybe we're all kind of colleagues. We're all sort of cohorts. We're all similar. We're all writers. We're all whatever. That was just where it made me look and go, I'm so glad I didn't grow up in that whole generation where it's like, because I have a blog, therefore I'm entitled. No. I've been a paid newspaper columnist for 19 years. I've been a paid radio host for this many years. I've been a paid, best-selling author, travel writer, whatever you want to call it. Everything that I've done has paid. And that's something, again, just I mentioned that the other week to you guys, is own what you do. It's fine to sort of do, they call it sweat equity as a clever way of saying basically volunteer work. But, something that I looked at back in the day on job boards or whatever, it's like, well, we're looking for a volunteer editor. We're looking for a volunteer writer. Let's be honest now, on your resume, back when I was applying for jobs as a teenager, it was beat into our heads that if you have volunteer work on your resume, that looks really good. If you have this on your resume, that looks really good. Bullshit. I'm not even going to look at that. I don't care. I don't care that you volunteer with the Children's Hospital. I don't care that you feed seniors. I don't care that you... Truly, I don't. Do you meet the qualifications of the job? Do you have the talent? Do you have the skills? Do you have the professionalism? That's what I want. And so, so fast forward now, I'm gonna look at something like that. Volunteer writing? No, you're gonna pay me for it. You can, even if it's gonna be a little bit of money, you're gonna pay me for my efforts. That's something that I absolutely would never do. I wouldn't do it. I would not work for free. All these whole intern things, you get a paid internship. Because as a business person, I can tell you, if I can get free labor, absolutely I would do it. right? Sometimes the broadcast schools or other, colleges, universities will have those work placements for 2 weeks or whatever. Companies love that because it's free crap. You're going to give that person all the bitch work that nobody else wants to do. Do the loose ends, do the coffee run, do the whatever it is. Great, sure, fine. But volunteer editor? No, would never. I would never do it. Writing, all that, no, you're going to pay me for it. You're going to pay me for it. So that's something else too, is don't feel embarrassed that you need to take another job in the meantime if the money's not coming in decently. And that's something else also that was asked of me, is I was never too good to take on a full-time job when I needed it. Years ago when I ran into financial hardships and I needed to borrow $7 from my brother to get a box of granola bars, and that was going to be my food for the week because I had a dog to pay for and a house and all this other stuff, I had to bite the bullet and say, you know what? I'm going to apply for a job, and I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to do my stuff on the side or on the evenings or weekends or whatever it is, but I'm going to take a job because I need the paycheck. But at the same time, be paid for what you're doing. Be paid for what you're doing. Because when I started out on that radio station, like I talked about many, many years ago, that was the promise of sweat equity, money's going to be coming in any day now. Then I meet the guys on the team, and they're all very creative. They all want to be radio stars. They all want to do this. They all want to do that. Nobody had the business mindset to make money from it. I just want to host my show on Tuesdays. I just want to produce stuff. I just want to do this. I just want to do editing. Somebody needs to land the business and make money. Somebody needs to sell advertising. Somebody needs to get sponsorship. Somebody needs to do something. Nobody wants to do it. So you know what JB here did? I went and took my show and I syndicated it. I built my own audience on other stations. Now I've got 7 stations, 9 stations, 15 stations, 21 stations, 42 stations at the height of it, 300,000 listeners. And at that time, that radio station went under because nobody was selling, nobody was making money. JB was closing in on 6 figures as an entrepreneur who, like I said, started out in his parents' basement and slugged it out by selling commercial airtime, and was booking shows, and was making contacts in Hollywood, and was doing all this other stuff, and working his ass off. And now guess what JB is doing all these years later? He's working about 5 hours a fucking week, sleeping in until 10 o'clock, and having mimosa in bed on Mondays with his hot fucking husband, who was maybe hot fucking him Sunday night. And we have mimosa Mondays in bed, and we eventually roll out of bed. We lay in the backyard, we walk the dogs, we have some cocktails. I tune into the entertainment headlines. I record my show that I still do. I write a newspaper column on Mondays. And I'm living the dream now because I spent all those years working my ass off. Now, am I cocky about it? Am I conceited? When I'm joking about it, sure, absolutely. I will laugh with our colleagues, with my, friends, family, whoever. But absolutely, I know that I've worked every single minute for everything that I have. Every trip that I've taken, every free swag, every drink that I've had at a red carpet event, I've never, ever, ever taken for granted. Every fucking backpack that I've been given, every hat, every pen, every travel mug, every cheap pair of fucking sunglasses that look like you got them from the dollar store and that a kid would wear and they're not going to protect your eyes from any kind of thing. I've appreciated every single thing that has been given to me. And that is how I'm going to wrap up this show, because we do have to go now. We're already now in supersized Scribble territory. Be appreciative of every opportunity and take every opportunity. Like I said earlier, I never would have thought that I was going to be a syndicated radio host for 15 years. I never, ever, ever in my wildest dreams thought that I was going to be doing that. And at Betty White's 90th birthday party, and talking with Donald Trump on the red carpet at the Celebrity Apprentice, and doing this, and doing that, and doing this, and going here, and experiencing this, and ziplining through the jungle in Mexico, and flying to Panama, and staying in a beautiful island resort, but every time I get on the plane and come home, every time I hang up the phone from that celebrity interview, every time I walk in my office and I see that backpack in the closet, every time I sit there and I appreciate it and I'm grateful for every opportunity I had because I made it happen. But I've never, ever, ever taken it for granted. I've never said that I'm too good to do this. I'm too good for that. Oh, I'm not going to write for your little publication. Oh, I'm not going to do this. Because I still write for the community newspaper that got my newspaper career started 19 years ago. I'm still in there. I've written 840 columns with that newspaper. Does it pay well? Is it unionized? Is it whatever? No, it's not, but I have that loyalty because I've never gone and said, oh, I'm now doing Hollywood radio broadcasts. I'm too good for your little rinky-dink newspaper. Nope. So as we wrap up the Pride Biz Showcase on the Scribble, I appreciate all of the entrepreneurs who have shared their insight with us. I appreciate the people who have emailed in their questions, their comments, their stories, their experiences. I'd love to hear from you. My email address is live@jbonair.com, live@jbonair.com. And again, it's presented by buffboybrewing.com. Check them out, buffboybrewing.com. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com. Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some